It is now evening, Maddrift, and I am pleased to announce that all of the arcane lights and sending stones have been affixed to reach the entirety of our town. If there are no found malfunctions, as there shouldn't be, within the next few nights, then next week we will begin testing the effectiveness of our new protocols against the feasting death. This test will consist of 6 of you as volunteers to remain outside after light set within a certain distance from the center of our town. This will allow us to have a better understanding of the feasting death's already well-known hearing capabilities, as well as see if we may be able to start allowing citizens outside after light set, depending upon the effectiveness of these new protocols. Should you wish to volunteer for this test, you are required to already reside within the center of Maddrift, which the exact description of what that means will be depicted on a chart posted on the Dove board after light rise tomorrow. You must also be of a certain age and health that will likewise be written there, and not have a relation to anyone recently apprehended by the Queen's Guard or ever apprehended by the Queen's Guard as far as our records hold. If 6 of you are unwilling to volunteer, 6 of you will then be chosen at random by myself, Judge Tolphier, as well as the Extinction Keeper Laos in order to keep things fair. Several nights after the test, we will finally be allowing you to volunteer to be the evening narrator. I highly encourage all of you to put your names up for the opportunity. I'm sure some of you are better speakers than I am, and that you have more interesting things to share that are less detail-oriented about our town and, well, perhaps less boring, as some of you have written in saying that what I have to talk about is not worth talking about. So I will remind you that I am simply town judge. I'm not a fable weaver. It is not my job to talk and entertain you. It is my job to make sure that our protocols and rules are followed. Less wonderful news is that 2 of the enchanters here from Queenstown have succumbed to their illnesses caused by the drifting vapors through Maddrift. One of them has unfortunately fully fallen victim to the effects of the illness, and the other has passed away, hopefully peacefully, sometime last evening. Those of you who are new to Maddrift and still feeling unwell, I remind you again that you can procure something to treat your symptoms and perhaps even cure you at the Clay Draught or the Wafted Curtain. The directions to both of which should still be on the Dove board unless someone has taken down a notice. They shouldn't have. I will check after light rise. Now then, I want to express my gratitude as always. That's definitely not. One of the arcane lamps near the recording box with the master sending stone within it, the place from which I am narrating from for the evening, appears to have ruptured. Yes, ruptured is a good word. There is a light blue stream of liquid and fog trickling from it onto the ground, just outside of what used to be our Dove Couriers, where this stone was affixed. Thankfully, that shed has been in disuse for quite some time, but I do believe some of you were storing things inside of it, though you shouldn't have been. Please do not go back to retrieve your belongings after light rise. You will have to abandon whatever you had in there until the enchanters are able to assure me that whatever is leaking over them at the moment from that broken lamp is not going to cause any harm. I sincerely hope that this is the only arcane lamp that is damaged, and the rest of them, especially the ones just installed near the edges of town, are in good working order, as well as the sending stones that should be echoing my voice. I don't hear any discrepancies within the box, but I'm also not quite able to hear the outward recordings until I finish within here. I'm aware that much of the sound is still coming through at different volumes across Maddrift, and not as clearly as we would all like in certain areas. I assure you the enchanters are still working on it. Now then, I want to express my gratitude as usual towards the enchanters and Queensguard who have come here to Maddrift to help us with our plight against the feasting death, as well as state how honored we should all be that our Empress has deemed our town worthy of such an important task. I realize that yes, we are the target of this creature. We are keeping its gaze firmly affixed to us, but we are also keeping the feasting death away from the rest of our glorious Queen's land. We are keeping the rest of Zivia safe by putting only us in the eye of this creature. And we should feel proud that we were assigned such a task, that we were deemed worthy and responsible enough and capable of upholding it. Ah, yes, and I had nearly forgot, we have received a response from Citadel Acclamations, the storybook from which I requested through the aid of Extinction Keeper Laos will indeed be delivered. However, it will be slightly delayed. We will also be receiving 2 new enchanters who have been assigned to Maddrift. This tome, however, that we are receiving, I have gotten a short, brief description of it. It is compiled by Citadel Acclamation Conservator Alistair with aid of Extinction Keeper Stray, and it is a collection of truths and fables of uniquely Dizivian nature from across our beautifully dark lands. They did not write the title of what this tome is called, but nonetheless we should all be looking forward to receiving it. Which brings us now to that time after light set where the announcements and all necessary things that need to be said have been said. So I will reintroduce myself. I am Judge Tolphier, and I will be the one speaking for you throughout this evening. Several of you left unhappy posts to my door this afternoon about how Maddrift is out of sleeping draughts and you'll be forced to stay awake tonight because you can't sleep through the announcements. I do understand that as town judge you expect a certain level of enforcement from me when it comes to how Maddrift is run, but Maddrift is not owned by Maddrift in the way that the Dove Courier or the guard posts are, and I cannot enforce them to give you a sleeping draught. I cannot force them to admit to hoarding, overpricing, or playing favorites and giving out more than one draught to a single person, which would be clearly against the rules stated by the author that they were delivered with from Queenstown. I would be completely overstepping my authority and casting baseless accusations towards them if I demanded to see any sales records or tried to pressure them into giving you a sleeping draught. I do not find your grievances worth reporting back to Her Majesty our Queen in order to procure the right to interrogate them, and according to what I was told for the shipment that they would receive, it is about right that they would be running out of sleeping draughts by tonight. So I'm afraid you are simply going to have to find a way to adjust. Which reminds me of an accusation that one of you placed in the suggestion jar a night before. You are frustrated that I get to spend the remainder of the evening in a soundproof box after I finish the nightly narration that plays throughout Maddrift. I assure you that this structure is not soundproof. If it was, I wouldn't be able to tell that the recordings were working at all. They are rather muffled in here, but I can still hear them. This box was put together quickly by a couple of enchanters and our very own hard-working masons here in Maddrift over the course of 3 days, and the only accommodations inside it are a chair at the table with the arcane installments here that make everything run, a cot in which I may lay down after the recordings, There's of course another chair and cot for Extinction Keeper Laos in here with me, and I mean, no disrespect to you, Extinction Keeper Laos, as I say this, but I would dare challenge the rest of you, Maddrift, that I have a more difficult time sleeping than you do, giving these close quarters with Extinction Keeper Laos in a box that is unable to hinder any of the arcane lights, whereas all of you get to lay at home in your own beds and simply have to adjust to the sound of me speaking throughout the town on a recording. As far as I am aware, and as far as they appear like they care to share with me, I'm not even entirely sure that Extinction Keeper Laos sleeps. At least not in the evenings, and I dare say it would be difficult for any of you to sleep in close quarters with a relative stranger who has the full capability of simply staring at you all night. But that is all rather beside my point. I was trying to get at the fact that we are all adjusting to the nightly narrations with similar difficulties to those you have expressed, and I suggest that rather than complaining, one of you resourceful people find a means to create a lucrative business selling effective earmuffs. I've already heard that one of you has begun work on thick curtains, as apparently you've requested extra wool from outside of the town. I'm not entirely sure if we're going to be able to accept that request, but I understand what you are trying to do and I'm very proud. With all of that off my chest for the evening, and nothing having been planned, I suppose I will have to risk reading a few of the notes left in the suggestion jar that I didn't get to before. I will be avoiding any that seem long, as to avoid any near misses, such as the one we had before. Alright. This one is from Sumi. Oh, rather gracious of you to put your name. Sumi writes, I heard stories about the Still Divide when I was a child that were nothing like the one you recounted over the evening. What you told was what I'd consider a scary story. Yes, that was quite the point, Sumi. May I share one of my stories for a happier evening telling? Of course, please do share your stories, Sumi, and anyone else that wishes to. I regret that I do not know all of you personally, though I've only been your town judge for a few months, so I think that's rather understandable. We're not a city-sized place, but we're by no means a small town. Anyways, my point is that I would be pleased if anybody wanted to hand me a written story whenever I am available after light rise. I'm only going to need to look over it to make sure it is acceptable. I cannot immediately tell you that I will read it as the evening narration, but I would be quite pleased to have any stories that you are willing to write out and hand to me. I'm sure that the entire town would love it more than me sitting up here trying to figure out how to talk to you through an arcane recording. My curiosity is rather piqued by your clarification of a happier tale as well, Sumi. I can't say I remember many of the stories I heard as a child about the Still Divide, but I can't recall a single one that wasn't what you would consider frightening in some sense or another. Moving on to our next suggestion. I suggest that if you must continue to speak during the evenings for our safety, that you put, that is vulgar. Your frustrations are heard loud and clear in your suddenly bold handwriting. I will be rather blunt in return for your brashness, and apologize later if I must. But you'll simply have to get over it. This is for Maddrift's benefit. Something else that would be deeply in Maddrift's benefit would be if anyone would like new employment as a pre-screener for the suggestion jar. I clearly do not have the time to read all of them, and it's risky to read them for the first time aloud when the entire town can overhear it. So if you would like to be employed by the town judge, myself, please come see me at my home in the afternoon tomorrow. I'll think of some finer qualifications by then, but for now all I can think of is that you be literate, educated enough of degree to pick out the misspelled words and decipher what the person is trying to write, and you will also, of course, need to be conscientious enough to pick out which letters cannot be read aloud to the entire town, and which ones are only slightly questionable, as well as which ones are entirely safe. As I've said though, there's nothing else to focus on this evening, so I will continue with the suggestion jar. There aren't as many tonight as there were the last 2 evenings, but if what I read earlier and just now are anything to go by, it's an even mix of things worth touching upon and things that you shouldn't have put in the jar at all. I think perhaps I'll make a complaint jar for all of you. Now let's see. Tell people to stop spitting at us. Well, I've said it, but you didn't specify who us refers to, and I don't recognize your writing. Are you a Queen's Guard? I don't believe you're an enchanter. I've had to read all of their handwriting several times now. Maddrift, if you are spitting at the Queen's Guard, cease that immediately. They have every right to arrest you for disturbing their work. If it's an accident, I can understand and I will speak on your behalf, but if you are caught doing it more than once and these accidents become a little too coincidental, I will not step in should they choose to apprehend you. Make the suggestion jar easier to get to. It is already at the center of town. I'm not sure how much easier I can make it to reach. If you're from the edges of Maddrift, then I do apologize for the long walk, but it really shouldn't take you more than an hour at a leisurely pace. And there are 2 dove boxes on the east and west far sides that you can take advantage of to send something to the central dove courier near the center of town, if that is any easier for you. That will of course cost you coin, but it will save you the trip. Alright, just 2 more slips here that I haven't read yet. Oh dear, perhaps I should invest more in the literacy of Maddrift while we're making so many changes. Extinction Keeper Lowers should narrate one night. What an interesting proposal. I, however, do not believe that it is one in which they are interested. Extinction Keeper Lowers has every right to take over if they ever feel so inclined, but the blank stare beside me, beneath their clean mask, gives little impression that it is something they will ever have a desire to do. Last one. It's a little longer. Why will we only celebrate the day of feasting death once a year, the same as Queenstown? It's Queenstown, you forgot something there. Where they don't have to face this danger. Why is it a celebration at all? We are trapped here and risking our lives against our wills, and we will get it one day out of the year where we are demanded to stay up all evening and throw a party we don't have any say in. We should at least get the right to celebrate more often if we must celebrate at all. I'm not sure how you managed to spell celebrate 3 different ways, but I applaud you. And I will remind Maddrift that our duty here is an honor bestowed upon us by the Queen, and yes, in a sense we are trapped, but we are trapped by the feasting death, not any one or thing else. And as for why we will only be celebrating annually the same as Queenstown, it is because that is how our Empress has willed it. As the nearby towns are, despite the suggestion calling them of nearby, not nearby. They are several days away in any direction, and sometimes even the doves are not fortunate enough to escape the feasting death when we send them out. If you really stop to think about it, the one day of celebration for us is already going to be a monumental task for those delivering the food and supplies promised. Our Queen's decree that we will have deliveries made once a year is already an ambitious one that we have yet to attempt and are still actively trying to work out the details of, so no one gets hurt in the process. As of now, Maddrift receives close to nothing from the outside, as we are all quite well aware. We grow our own food, we create most of our own necessities by ourselves, and occasionally, on rare occasions, we will receive something via the doves with expensive magical packaging that makes it possible to deliver what we need, be that an animal, building supplies, books, There are no deliveries made here in the form of caravans or physical merchants from far away, and when they are often half-starved, dead on their animals, and if they survive and we have care to offer, they end up as new citizens of Maddrift. But that is a rather sour topic, and I don't think any of us particularly want to listen to it. And the well-being of outsiders aside, Maddrift itself would suffer if we had a monthly, all-night celebration. Production would falter, work quality would suffer, and as we are so self-reliant, I'm sure we all understand why that's not in anyone's best interest. I have no more to say on the matter, and I do wish to put the functionality of the new sending stone system to use to its full capacity. However, some of the lights across the board that I've been told to keep an eye on are starting to pulse, and that means I need to stop recording. There's also the matter of the one arcane light across the road that one and possibly more, actually, that have broken at the onset of light set earlier, so perhaps tonight is not the right night to use these to their supposed full capacity. Have a wonderful evening, Maddrift. We will now stop the recording and replay it.